So thank you very much for invitation as well as to present this particular topic, interculturality in the post-pandemic world. Certainly, we are in the pandemic, but also we are trying to look at ahead, what is the post-pandemic world. That is the topic which we have. So I straight away go to the aspect of interculturality. Now, when we try to understand interculturality, we need also to understand the other terms like monoculturality, multiculturality, cross-culturality, and then internationality and interculturality. I am not going to all these details of those terms. We understand, I believe. So I straight away go into the aspect of interculturality. It is an interaction between diverse cultures, ethnicity, language, religious denomination, and nationality. So therefore, it is an interaction between various cultures. So it is an intentional engagement among cultures for understanding and mutual enrichment. Whereas the other culture, like multiculturality and cross-culturality, may not be intentional. Here, as a Christian community, we are making an intentional engagement so that we want to achieve something. That is why it gives a mutual enrichment process. Therefore, it is a commitment to mutual dialogue. That dialogue really helps us. That dialogue also helps us to understand that we need to be tolerant and also ambiguity. There are many ambiguities we will come across, but then we will not get answers for everything. But that is also the challenge of what we call interculturality. Openness to change and to challenge. That means I, as my own culture, when I interact with the other cultures, that I am challenged. I challenge the other cultures which are not good, which are contrary to the gospel values and so forth. At the same time, I look into my own culture, that which are need to be challenged. So in that particular interactions, what we try to arrive is what we call leading to the transformation and enrichment of all. So that is the way in which we move towards interculturality, where there is a transformation of everyone who are in that particular community. Okay, this is a basic thing which I would like to say. Then move on to interculturality as such. Now, interculturality is more than knowing the differences between different ethnic and tribal and national groups, because the diversity is not enough. We need to know also the other elements regarding differences between men and women. Each and every culture has got its own understanding of what we call men as well as women, the cultural patterns, and the way we react to the restrictions, the challenges, and so forth. And then we also understand the personality. There is another element. Of course, there are a lot of theories understanding personality, but then we need to understand in the context of the culture and personality. So that also gives us a challenge, and at the same time makes us also a complex way in which we interact with the other cultures. Therefore, the personality element also need to be considered when we try to understand the cultures. Also, the other element is generations. Generations of the young and old, and then the people who are of different ages. Certainly, that also need to take into consideration as we understand interculturality. It's not the cultural elements has got various ramifications as we really see this. Therefore, also understanding the social political classes in a culture, in a particular realities, that also makes us a kind of a complex world in the sense of understanding our interactions, as well as trying to understand what we call, as I said in the beginning, challenging mutual dialogue, as well as transformation. So it is not that easy as we really see. Certainly, there are also many other considerations we need to understand. But I just want to see this particular diagram now, which is given by this Hammer and Milton Bennett, very shortly to explain there are different stages of integration and the different stages that in which we grow towards interculturality. These authors have given, first of all, when we meet with other cultures, there is a denial. So that other cultures don't exist, they are bad, or things like that. We miss the difference. We are not looking at the difference. The second stage is we defend ourselves. There is a defense, judging the difference. We try to say they are bad, they are good, there is a difference, and so forth. Then there is a minimization. Once we try to understand, we minimize the differences. Therefore, we de-emphasize the difference and try to really relate, try to understand, try to mutually agree upon, live happily, try to do something. The fourth one is actually acceptance. So the deeply comprehends the difference. We accept the difference, but at the same time, we don't deny the difference. We try to accept and then interrelate much more. And that much more living together will also help in one way towards interculturality. And the fifth one is adaptation. Adaptation, bridging the differences. So here the differences are said, but then we bridge those differences, adapt in one or the other way in my own culture, some of the cultural elements of other cultures, and so forth. And the last, what we call, we come to the integration. So when our cultures really integrate with one another, there is the intercultural process takes place, and that's how we grow. Well, these are the different stages. From the research, they have found out most of the communities, the religious communities, will be somewhere in minimization. We have not really gone. Some of the communities, maybe Christian communities, may be leading to acceptance, but then we have still not reached the adaptation and integration. We are only growing. Some elements we are taking from one to another, and we are growing into this intercultural aspect. Okay. Now, interculturality as a religious value, meaning of interculturality beyond mere coexistence, because we believe the other cultures, we value the other cultures. So there is a religious value attached to this. Only then we will be able to really live and move towards interculturality. There is a personal and social transformation takes place while recognizing one another, the other religions, other cultures, other nationalities. There is a faith-based community. Actually, we try to approach interculturality from our faith. That gives much more the strength, and then looking for a transformation. There are also interculturality, which is valued in what you call the world organizations and multimedias, and then the different other multinational companies, but then they may approach it very differently. But we approach it with a faith. For the sake of peace and harmony, for building the reign of God, promoting God's kingdom, both within the community and reaching out to the others. So that gives an orientation how we move forward. Kittens, one of the famous authors, he gives understanding in this way. The culture may be like A culture. In a community, there will be B culture, there may be C culture, there may be D culture. That means there are different cultures are there. Interculturality is actually creating a new culture. That means taking the various elements and then moving towards one another as one particular community, and then based on our faith and based on the mutual dialogue and enrichment. And that is the way in which we grow in the new intercultural community. Therefore, acknowledge the presence of seed of God in all the cultures. That is the base. Denounce blindness in the cultures when we encounter. We accept the cultures. That does not mean that we accept everything. Both those blindnesses we try to encounter, we try to challenge them. There is a promote mutual enrichment. When we understand that only there is a enrichment, a critique among the individuals and groups. That is the mutual enrichment and the mutual challenge, avoids cultural superiority, and also promotes unity in diversity and diversity in unity. And then avoids also uniformity and challenges fundamentalism. Therefore, in this particular post-pandemic world, we are trying to look at this interculturality, what way that we could move further. Therefore, these are some of the challenges we come across actually now in this aspect. Therefore, the synthesis, what we call, is a creative tension. John Kirby, one of the authors, says it is a cross-cultural conversion. John Pryor, who is present here with us, one of the participants here, and he says it is an intercultural conversation. Therefore, this cross-cultural conversation or intercultural conversation. We are moving towards intercultural conversation. There will be creative tension, but the tension is actually to understand one another. So I come back to Kitten's some of the aspects of interculturality. Intercultural living is radically different living in an international community. It describes specifically the way we live out our faith discipleship. It is about the quality of relationship. Intercultural living is not a problem, but a challenge. Not theirs, but ours. Impossible in us and them world, but it is only in your we world, that means integrated world, we try to approach a particular society living and so forth. Intercultural living is not natural, but it is possible. Perhaps even we can call supernatural. Faith-based living gives enrichment, not just acquiring new techniques. By acquiring new techniques alone will not help intercultural living. The faith really motivates us to live as well as to look for a transformation. It is not easy, but it is desirable and urgently needed. One culture is not to dominate, that everyone is called to what you call conversion. It needs a full commitment and hard work. Goodwill is not enough. Historically, religious goodwill alone has perpetuated disaster and injustice. Therefore, it requires compromise, maybe compromise when we say not giving up the values, but then understanding, tolerance, real dialogue, and a clear and common vision. Intercultural community cannot be built on autocratic, dogmatic leadership. This requires or produces a revolution in life, both new and obligatory. So when we perceive in this line, certainly there is a revolution which takes place. I come to what he calls some of the challenges now, in the challenges in the communities. First of all, it is prejudices and stereotypes. Preconceived ideas and evolutions regarding a group in the intercultural communications. Therefore, there is a country, ethnic, there is a prejudice. In the pandemic time, we have seen the racism, domination of whites, caste privileges in India and other places. So these are some of the things. These prejudices have really blown up. Prejudices, sometimes it can be dealt upon, but then it is blown up during this pandemic. Cultural domination. In an intercultural group, the predominant group, also tend to consider themselves as a superior. Therefore, there is a nationalism and fundamentalism. We have seen this in Europe, in Asia, or in other places. Self-victimization. This is also another challenge. Sometimes one who suffers from low esteem may easily perceive discrimination and ill treatment, play the role of a victim. So I am treated in this way, I am from minority community and so forth. But then one has to really see what is the real challenge and what is the real problem. Cultural shield, using cultural differences for self-interest. That is simply one says, no, you don't understand this, you don't understand me. So that is a kind of a shielding, not allowing for a mutual dialogue. Majority cultural insensitivity. use of language and practice their customs without any sensitivity to others. And then we had seen this, during this pandemic, insensitivity to the migrants, insensitivity to the poor. And also we have seen the rich countries and poor countries divide, which grows, especially in pandemic time. Rich countries tend to enjoy privileges and an attention, especially with rules and regulations, vaccines, and so forth. So it is not really geared towards this intercultural community, what we are talking. Therefore, there are challenges in this way too. Of course, cyber world and the attitude of young people, that is addiction often leads astray from your community. Freedom, how to cope up with. There is also another challenge against vaccines or against sharing the vaccine with the others. So, that also tends towards the kind of a egoistic understanding. Christian communities normally do not explode into group fight and violence with cultural differences and these discriminations and so forth. But people may resort to withdrawal into oneself, departure from community, or passive aggression. And these are the challenges, I would say, which is touching us in this time of pandemic. Now, how to build the intercultural community? So I come to the next element now. First talked about the community, intercultural communities, then the challenges, now how to build it. Maybe appreciate our differences. This is one of the ways. Rediscover the dignity of difference and celebrate it. I mean, certainly this is one of the things I could say. Need to rethink the way we think. Sometimes when we interact with the other cultures, there's only dialectical approach, oppositional and exclusive, right and wrong. This particular approach may not be helpful for intercultural approach. It is analogical, complementary and inclusive, finding validity in others. It is not only that you are right and wrong, but then trying to find a kind of an inclusive approach. What is something wrong? What are the aspects which can be accepted? What are the aspects which cannot be expected? And so forth, kind of analogical. Share power with the other cultures. This is one of the things I would say today. Give opportunities to the, what do you call the weak cultures or the other cultures. If there are different cultures are there, every culture should have some kind of a power in the decision-making process. Otherwise, in the religious communities or religious Christian communities or in the parishes, wherever we are, develop family spirit, developing new culture. And that would be a kind of a promoting intercultural community in a parish or in a community, even with the religious group, anywhere. Culture and personality, I just indicated, there are various theories exist. They are connected. Understanding personality is important for interaction. Deeper study is needed, especially in this element. Of course, it's another aspect itself. There are two things which I am not going to explain much because there is not much time for this. One is to have a proper intercultural community is having intercultural sensitivity. Okay. Ability to develop a positive attitude towards understanding and caring about cultural differences leading to effective intercultural communication. This is now important, especially in as we talk in this particular seminar. And interculturality, sensitive person develops 6 personal attitudes. I just read out: self-esteem, self-monitoring, open-mindedness, empathy, interaction, involvement, suspend judgment. Well, this is one lecture itself, so I just move on just to give an indication. The other one also is in another lecture itself, or you can whole day you can deal on intercultural factors. There are 12 characteristics identified as important for improving intercultural relationship. I just to skip on because this is just to show there are ways in which that we could grow. Now I come towards end, the ways for intercultural growth, especially interculturality as a paradigm formation. If we really develop that way, certainly we will achieve much. Seek contribution from everyone, every culture, especially during this pandemic world, who are included or excluded, migrants or the others. Take appropriate risk, working with compassion and concern. Pandemic time, compassion plays a big role to understand one another. Key to this paradigm is a practice of spirituality, deep listening, deep respect for the context in which one does mission, deep contemplation and prayer with those with whom and among whom one works. It goes during the pandemic, it goes post-pandemic, anytime. This is very important in this. So I have 4 or 5 what you call the conversions. What you call conversion from ethnocentrism, recognizing other cultures, goodness in others, respect and appreciation. Therefore, conversion from ethnocentrism. This is one element which is very much needed as we understand what we call the interculturality. From our ethnocentrism, conversion from egoism, exaggerated individualism, nationalism, fundamentalism, which we experience now and also maybe in the post-pandemic world, certainly conversion from egoism. Conversion also from self-sufficiency, cultural orientation to being open to other cultures, learn other cultures, challenge one's own as well as the other cultures. Therefore, this is another conversion. Conversion from triumphalism to interreligious dialogue. Just I have added 2 more here. This is also, I feel, in the context of the seminar that we need to really look into it. Conversion from consumerism to care for creation. Interculturality, when we live together, certainly we need to look beyond just to know living. Living also contains what is our mission, what we are going to do. Therefore, conversion in this sense too. And this is my last slide and my conclusion. Solidarity. Now, interculturality, if you want to really build, to grow in this present as well as the post-pandemic world, the solidarity is important with one another. Pandemic revived the nationalism, racism, selfishness, and gaining personal profit. Fratelli Tutti indicates we need solidarity. Pope Francis calls for solidarity to confront this epochal challenge. Therefore, Pope Francis calls also find a cure for human and socio-economic viruses in our intercultural life and intercultural mission, that we may be able to really go ahead living peaceful as well as joyful community. Thank you.